Hey everyone, welcome back. There's a lot to talk about in today's video, and this one headline you're seeing right now really caught my attention. It's from the New York Times, and it's titled, "How much more can the US travel industry take?" Well, if you want my opinion, the answer depends on how much more stupid shit Donald Trump decides to do. So you better buckle up, US travel industry. Inside the article though, they highlight two Florida business owners who are clearly struggling, which completely goes against Ron DeSantis' narrative that everything is just fine down there. We're also going to look into a report out of Vermont, where the holiday shopping season was a bust without the Canadian visitors. And I'll show you a follow-up report from CTV about the mandatory photographing at the US border. So we have a lot to unpack in today's episode. Today's background comes from Marjorie, who took this photo in St. Maurice, Quebec. Even though I'm currently in much warmer weather right now, I really do appreciate everyone sending all the winter photos from home. So thank you for sending this over, Marjorie. One more thing before we get started. I recently watched a video from House of L about AI-generated political videos. In a previous video of mine, I did mention that the George Conway clip that's going around the internet right now, some of you have sent it to me and it's actually a fake video, and it's not George himself. Elle does a really good job explaining why it's important to ignore and call out these fake videos. So let's take a look.
Let's glance at an example, but this is honestly just one of them. I really don't want to blast this channel. I just want to highlight what the play is here. So one of the recent videos that I watched was titled "Argentina Abandons the IMF, the Deal with Russia That Destroys 70 Years of Control, John Mearsheimer." Now, I understand how this game works. I understand using a provocative title to grab attention. That's not the problem. The problem is that the content itself, the claims being made in the video, were completely false, and no less delivered by an AI avatar of another person that the channel doesn't actually belong to.
I'm going to stop it here, but she does a really good job explaining how these fake videos are creating misinformation. There's no responsibilities on these creators for what they're putting out there. Just like the George Conway video that many of you are still sending me, saying that George supports Canada. But he doesn't, or maybe he does. But the point is that the video isn't him, and it's not words that are coming out of his mouth. This has also happened with other political figures, including our own Prime Minister Mark Carney in the past. We've seen AI voices and overlays making it sound like him, saying things that he never said. I spoke to Elle just before recording this video, and we share the same frustration when it comes to the political AI videos. For me, it's because some guy in Pakistan literally copied my entire channel and even used an AI voice that sounds similar to mine. And Elle has also had her scripts ripped off as well. So I really recommend that everyone watches her video on why we need to be careful when it comes to the AI content. The link to her video will be in the description below. So go check it out and let her know I sent you over. And on a side note, I did mention to Elle that I recently did a live stream with Josh, and I asked if she ever wanted to do a live stream with me as well. So we'll see what she says. I know you're watching this, Elle. No pressure. Alright, let's get into the first report out of Vermont.
Season is a boon for many small businesses in Vermont, but this year some are seeing less foot traffic as lingering frosty feelings from Canadians are slowing business.
Tonight, our Calvin Cutler has new data showing the Canadian slowdown.
St. Johnsbury, the gateway to the Northeast Kingdom, is making an effort to bring more people into town. New stores, cafes, boutiques, and galleries, like the NEK Artists Guild, showing the crafts of some 100 artists from across Vermont.
They rely on us as being sort of their bricks and mortar.
But this year, locals say they've seen a dip in the number of Canadian visitors.
It's making a big difference in our revenues.
Officials here in St. Johnsbury tell me about 10% of their downtown traffic is made up by our neighbors to the north, which isn't as much as other towns in the kingdom like Newport, but it's still significant. And they say since January, that 10% is now down to around 3%.
10% might not sound like a lot, and of course, we'd all love it to be higher. We have to remember that even at 10%, it's enough to cause real pain. What's even worse for them right now is now down to 3%. Even though St. Johnsbury is in Caledonia County, which did lean Democrat, it still makes me happy to see Eastern Canada just saying no to St. Johnsbury.
Don't want to see any drop at all.
Nearly a year into the second Trump administration, tariffs and political rhetoric from Washington is still putting a dent on the long-standing economic and cultural relationship between the U.S. and Canada.
And we've heard directly from Canadian visitors that the rhetoric from Washington is contributing to them choosing not to come.
State travel data shows a dramatic fall in border crossings, down 20% at Highgate Springs year over year, and 30% at Derby Line. And in October, Canadian credit card spending was down almost 50%, mostly affecting our northernmost communities.
This is a stat that I hope we get to see more of, because in my opinion, it's a more accurate representation than the southbound border numbers that we usually see. It's also a true reflection on the pain that the US businesses and the hospitality industry is actually feeling, because we know it's Canadian money not being spent. Let me know in the comments below if you agree with me that credit card spending is a metric that we should be relying on more.
Spending that we see from Canadians has definitely dropped, and it's dropped significantly.
Tourism is 9% of Vermont's GDP compared to the 3% national average. State economists say between the 51st state rhetoric to the trade war, Vermont's coffers are feeling economic effects, which were avoidable.
There's a meaningful cost to Vermont, in terms of revenues in the millions of dollars, in terms of total economic impact, probably tens of millions of dollars.
While leaders in Vermont say they're working overtime to make Canadians feel welcome again.
We very much would love for them to come back to the state whenever they feel like they are ready.
I would say that many of us won't be ready for a very long time, even after Trump is gone. So these reports might sound repetitive to some people, but I see it as more of a reminder of our why. Why are we boycotting? And is our efforts actually making an impact? Well, this report clearly answers that. Yes it is. So for those who used to visit Vermont for tourism and might actually be watching right now, a big shout out to you guys for standing your ground. Now moving on to the next report. This one is a follow-up on the situation with the mandatory photograph at the border, which now applies to everybody.
And there's a new rule for Canadians traveling to the U.S. Caroline, all non-U.S. citizens, including Canadians, will have to submit to being photographed whenever they cross the border now.
That's right, Maya. The new requirements actually took effect today. They're part of a new regulation from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, or DHS. And it means that individuals traveling to and from the U.S. across air, land, and sea border crossings will have to be photographed when entering or leaving the country. The DHS has already been collecting biometric data from certain travelers entering the U.S. since 2004, but now there will be no age-based exemptions. Children under the age of 14, including babies, and adults over 79, and even diplomats are now included.
How do you even take a biometric scan of a baby at the scanner? I would imagine it would look something like this. Now, as I've mentioned previously, I don't have a problem with my own biometrics being taken. I know some of you have big issues with that, and that's fair. But the reality is a lot of countries around the world are already doing this. The real issue is who's holding the data, and which government is going to be responsible for it. You generally don't know what these two clowns might do with your data, or who they might share it with, or hell, who they might sell it off to. We know some people will argue the other countries will do this as well, and my response to that is simple. The United States government has a reputation right now all around the world.
There was previously no system in place to record this when people left the country, but the DHS says these measures are necessary to address national security concerns such as terrorist threats, identity fraud, child trafficking, or foreigners who stay in the U.S. beyond their legal authorizations. It also says collecting photos of kids now enables DHS to associate the immigration records created for children to their adult records later, which could assist in identifying associations with terrorist or other organizations later in life. Now, the rule also gives Customs and Border Protection the authority to collect other biometrics such as fingerprints, iris scans, voice prints, and even DNA, although for now, most Canadian citizens are still exempt from these requirements. DHS can also retain this personal data for up to 75 years, and some have raised concerns about how long this data would be kept, along with the risks of breaches and misuse.
The misuse is one of my biggest concerns. I mean, the US government couldn't even figure out how to properly redact the Epstein files, and many people online were able to uncover what was supposedly redacted. So after that, do I trust them with my data? Definitely not. This report then goes on to interview random people on the street, and some of their responses don't seem to grasp the bigger picture, which is who is actually holding your data.
Here's what some people we spoke to out in Montreal this evening thought of it.
First time I heard that, I'm shocked. I mean, like, at the first time, Canada and US seems to be like as friends, and now it's weird. Privacy problems, of course.
I don't see any like negatives.
If it helps our country to be protected Yeah, I agree.
Je pense que ça c'est un petit peu dangereux.
Pourquoi vous pensez ça?
Parce que quelques personnes peuvent voler comme quelque chose comme ça.
It doesn't bother me very much. It's kind of normal. Anyway, our picture and our information are taken everywhere. So one more, one less, doesn't care.
I'm not even a Canadian citizen. I'm a French citizen. I live in Canada since 5 years, so I think it will be really hard for me to go back to the US, even if it's a country that I love to go.
I wholeheartedly agree with this French national. And it's just another layer on top of everything else that makes it harder for me to want to go to the United States. But the guy who said our photo's taken anyway and it's not that big of a deal, you obviously have more faith in the people handling the data than you should. I would not trust my data with a government that is breaking laws left, right, and center.
Now, the Canadian Civil Liberties Association also had a comment on this today. They said facial recognition is an intrusive surveillance technology that remains highly prone to error, with racialized non-white people experiencing far higher false positives and negative rates than others. The DHS is assuring that these photos will not be used for blanket surveillance, but there have been concerns also raised about the possibility of using traveler data to track journalists and political opponents. The program will be rolled out gradually and is expected to be fully operational in 3 to 5 years. Maya.
Using this data to track journalists or people who are against the Trump regime is the part that I think everyone who supports my channel should really be thinking about. Combined with the social media requirements, they want to know everything about you. So take this report as just another post-it note on a long list of reasons why we're continuing our boycott. Now I want to move on to the New York Times article titled, "How much more can the US travel industry take?" As I said in the beginning of the video, if you want your answers, talk to the president and ask him what other ridiculous policies or executive orders he's going to plan to roll out. But I wanted to show everyone this article because there are two business owners in Florida who share their sob stories about how the boycott is affecting their business. While I read this out to you, remember all the times that this idiot said Florida is thriving. And remember all the haters who said they're glad that the tourists are gone. The ones that basically saying that we don't need you. Now, I'm not going to read the whole article, but as always, the link is in the description below. For 30 years, Lloyd Magger, 72, has led bike tours in Key West, Florida. He spent decades sharing the city's tropical charm with a steady stream of tourists, especially those escaping the cold winters in places like Canada. He says bookings are down more than 25% this year, and that has him anxious about the peak season from Christmas through Easter. He then goes on to say, May was terrible, June was terrible, July was terrible, August was terrible, September, October, November. I'm guessing those were all terrible as well. He closes by saying, that's not going to pay the rent. That's a lot of terrible, starting with the letter T. So here's another word that starts with T. Terrific. The next business owner, Adesh Barua, says that it's been so bad and that every month my business is down 30 to 40%. There are no people here. Well, surely you don't need international tourists because these two clowns said you don't.
Also, of course, like we could survive without a ton of international tourism. I think the tourism industry in America, and I don't know this as a fact, but I think our tourism industry is more based on domestic tourism.
It's been a long time since I used these two clowns in a video. So why do I want to show this to everyone? Not the two clowns, the report. It's because there's so much noise coming out of Florida right now, and a lot of it is pure denial. You got the state government saying that they're seeing record numbers. US media showing snowbirds everywhere. Haters saying that prices are going down. All of it trying to make it sound like everything is fine. And then you have people like Adesh and Lloyd, who depend on Canadians and international tourists to keep their business going. And clearly, domestic tourists don't spend that much, and they also don't stay that long. So they're not going to cover the missing revenue. These two business owners, along with thousands and even millions of others across the United States, are the real indicators of what our boycott is actually doing. I hope this makes sense. I'm still working on trying to get what's in my head out onto the mic. But if my message is still unclear, it's this. If you listen to the right people in Florida, you will see the true effect of our boycott. That's all I have for today's video. Before I sign off, I've been toying with the idea of doing my own live stream with the GTL community. I actually had a lot of fun doing the live stream with Josh, and it made me think it would be a good idea to focus on the GTL community for one of these. During that live stream, I'll be totally honest, I really did not know where to look or what to focus on. There was just so much going on. And I do want to apologize to anyone who sent a super chat that didn't get recognized. So if you'd be interested in me hosting a live stream with the community, Let me know in the comments below. If there's enough interest, I'll see when I'm free next and look into setting one up. Have a great rest of your day, everyone, and I'll see you in the next video.